Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and now that you're thoroughly convinced that I'm a little bit of a cuckoo bird based off my last video regarding non-human extraterrestrial life and the Pope, I just want to come down a little bit. I'd like to show or share videos where I share my things that are going on in my head sometimes, because after all, this channel was initially created for my descendants to get a glimpse into who this ancestor was. So there's that. But I also have learned that some of you enjoy my conversations and enjoy my tarot, and I always have to bring it back to tarot in order to keep some of you here. But this is a tarot channel, so that's not the hard part. I know some of you don't care for my ramblings. You say so in the comment section, which is fine, but maybe there's another tarot channel that will appeal to you better, and I'm not offended at all. For those of you who do enjoy my channel, I will ask this time, because I don't remember to ask it, and it would be helpful to me, for you to like my channel, subscribe to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share me with other people. I don't ask that often enough. I ask it maybe once in every 50 videos. So it's something that I do want to put out there. And because I have been resisting making this a membership type of channel, because knowledge is power, and I don't think anyone has a right to hold on to anything that might be helpful to other people. But I am considering it. I am considering making it a membership kind of thing, because it may become necessary in future months for me to do so. Okay, so today's video, I am going to be using the Angel Tarot deck. Now, most of the vintage tarot decks that I have were decks that I bought at the time when they came out or shortly thereafter. However, that is not the case with the Angel Tarot deck. I wish I had purchased it when it first came out. And in fact, I remember seeing it on a shelf. Remember, in those days, they were wrapped. The box was presented this way. And let me see the date on this to make sure that I am speaking from correct memory. The date says 1980. The copyright date of this is 1980. It appears as though I have the first publication here. I think I do. I could be mistaken, and if you know better than I, please correct me in the area down below, because I really would like to know what edition I have. But as I said, I originally saw it on the shelf, this side, and I remember it. And at that time, when the words angel typically meant was a code for, oh, this is going to be, new age kind of stuff, So I figured it's going to be a new age kind of tarot deck. And I had a few of those probably already by the time I noticed this one on the shelf. So I skipped it. Had I had the foresight to pick it up and turn it around, I might have figured out that this looked like a TDM style or a PIP style deck, but I just didn't. So years later, while I was on this channel, as a matter of fact, a viewer, and I hope she's still a viewer. I think she is. Her name is Claire. Hi, Claire. I'm not sure if Claire turned me on to this deck or said there's a deck you might like, or if once I purchased it, she gave me insight. So I can't recall which it is. But I know I associate this deck with Claire. So hi, Claire. Now I believe I have done a showcasing with this deck. So I'm not going to do that today because I think I've already done it. What I will do is a few readings. Now, why did I pick this tarot deck today? Well, in coming off from yesterday's video on extraterrestrial life and the Catholic Church and their association with angels, I figured the Angel Tarot would be a good transition deck to use for readings, questioning, were angels misunderstood to be, or were extraterrestrial life forms, or were visitors from above, were they misunderstood and spoken of as angels, messengers from God? They did seem to come from above, and they did seem to have information. So let's see. I'll ask a few questions along those lines. Okay, the copy that I have, the bottom says, made in Japan, expressly for U.S. Game Systems, Inc., Stanford, Connecticut, USA. Here's a side. Here's another side. Here's the back, or front, back, top. It does have a code, a barcode. And here is the booklet. So it is published by U.S. Game Systems, Inc., by Stuart R. Kaplan. Okay, so the first question, real simple. I've already been to my meditative place asking the universe for insights, things we might consider regarding this question. Not necessarily a fortune-telling approach. I don't approach the cards as a fortune teller. We're not entitled to know the truth. Sometimes the truth is clouded. We're not privileged to know everything. But I do ask the universe to allow us, or allow me, to perceive their answer in a way that we're entitled to know. And the question, this first question is, what are angels? What exactly are angels? Okay, I don't read reversals. So we have Five of Cups. Well, I guess if you ask people, a group of people will get 5 different answers, or we'll get lots of different answers, not 5, but because there's, emotionally unsettled. Maybe there isn't a definitive point of view. Oh, here we have an angel. Interesting. So I see Temperance as a card of diluting toxicity. So maybe, in the context of the question, asking what is an angel, it's a way of, angels are a way of lessening the impact of something. Let's see what the next card is. Lessening the impact of the truth, perhaps. Death. Ooh, that's curious. Isn't that blue beautiful? What a beautiful blue. Okay, so we have 5 and 14 is 19. 19 and 13 would be 32. I have to check my math because we know what my mental math now. I'm not as, my acuity in mental math is off anymore since I've gotten a bit older. So we'll figure that out and I'll be right back. So putting this together, the 5 of Cups suggests an unease, maybe not what I initially said, where everybody's got a different emotional reaction to what an angel is, but maybe there's an unease of emotions, right? Along with the Temperance card, as of diluting the truth, perhaps, diluting it. Now, the Death card, facing the wheel. And as soon as I realized it was the wheel, the first thing that I started thinking in my head was when Ezekiel saw the wheel, right? So my mind immediately took me to Ezekiel and the wheel that he saw in the sky. So this may be a stretch, but the death card could represent, not just the end of something, but the rebirth of something, or the new beginnings, like clearing the plate, right? Now, that is an aspect of the death card. But it may be a stretch to apply it here. I don't know. Tell me what you think. But it could be that the angels are a way of redefining what the truth is. Just putting it in terms that we understand. And then this sort of seems like confirmation of the wheel. The first thing that popped into my head was when Ezekiel saw the wheel way up in the middle of the sky. So maybe it's time for, a rebirth for us, not to just see them as angels, but to see them for what they really are. Maybe the time has come. I don't know. People have been suggesting that for decades. I was wondering in my last video if, I know when I shuffle, it's kind of loud, so maybe I won't do it. Maybe I won't shuffle that way on camera. I'll do it off camera. Maybe I'm off kilter in suggesting that the past two popes have had an affinity for learning or understanding or thinking about extraterrestrial life, especially in regards to accepting people. On the surface, they appear to be accepting humans from, immigrants, right? But is there a broader scope, which is what the nature of yesterday's video was about. Let me go off camera, come up with 2 more questions for this lovely deck. I'll be right back. Okay, so I think I have a good question. If and when affirmative confirmation is made between non-human extraterrestrial intelligent life forms, what will that look like? How will that knowledge or that information come to the general human population? Oh, again, the death card to a question that was related. Ooh, okay. So we have 9 coins. It could relate to money. It could relate to well-being. It could relate to discs. The death card is facing the well-being or the discs. And we have the Queen of Discs, or the Queen of, what they call it, Pentacles, but that's coins. I mean, there's not a pentacle on here. And again, I think because given the time when, the deck was released, I think they wanted to make it palatable to people who were, in the States particularly, who were accustomed to seeing these coins as pentacles, the reference to pentacles because of Rider-Waite-Smith. But these aren't pentacles, as we can see. Okay, so we have 13 and 9, which would give us 22, which is the Fool card, because I do not count the Queen or any court cards. So let me go off, pull the, let's see where it happens to fall, if it happens to be close. No, it's not. Okay, so let me recalculate just in case I'm wrong and pull the Quint card. I think it's interesting that we have death and the number 9. Now, both death and the number 9 can suggest the end. Something has gone full cycle. And if you get past 9, you're 10. And 10 means a disintegration and the need to begin all over again. So we're getting close to the end of something. Does this mean that we're getting close to knowledge? Now, I want you to also notice this as an aside. In this particular deck, the suits are associated with playing card suits, which is kind of interesting. So we have coins represented by diamonds, which could represent wealth or the material world. I just thought I'd put that out there. Now, there's that. There's the sense of coming to an end of a cycle, or what it will look like. Maybe it will come at the end of some type of cycle. The cycle of well-being, I don't know. We have a woman who perhaps will be the messenger? Is it possible that a woman will be the messenger? Then we have the Fool, who is like the death card, is walking in this direction. So these two cards are encapped by Death and the Fool. The end of something and then moving forward. Now, the Fool card can suggest recklessness. It can suggest just taking a leap of faith. Now, he isn't, in this particular deck, if we read the deck, he's not walking towards a precipice. He's not about to fall off a crevice or anything like that. So I don't know that we could rightly say this card represents taking a leap of faith. But it does suggest just, sometimes I think the Fool goes through a town and then he's exhausted the town's ability to tolerate him, or he's, just exhausted the town's tolerance, and it's time for him to move on with either with his trusted companion, or that the dog is attacking. I don't know that there's been affirmative understanding what the dog represents. I have seen early Roman depictions of beggars with their dogs. So there is a sense that the beggars of ancient times had their dogs. So that could have been the source. But we don't rightly know. The bells certainly alert people in a community to know that this guy's in town, but he seems to be leaving town. So could it suggest that it will occur at the end of stability or well-being, presented perhaps by a woman in a position of authority, and as the Death card enters, so does the Fool card exit. Perhaps it will come at a time maybe it'll be brief, as in passing, or that's curious. Like maybe it'll happen. The circumstances will be as I just described, but then maybe they won't linger. You know what I mean? Maybe they're not coming to stay. Maybe it's just like, we exist, or they exist, and maybe the information will come from an authoritative figure. But that doesn't mean they'll be hanging out. I'm not sure if that's what the interpretation is. Or that's how that is the interpretation I'm giving. But I'm not sure that I'm perceiving it properly. I have some doubt about my perception. Here are the backs, by the way. I think I showed them earlier. And I'd like to come up with one more question, because I do like to do readings in groups of 3. So let me collect my thoughts and see if I can come up with another question for this deck. Alrighty, so if I understood correctly, and that the message would come through the form of a feminine form or a nurturing individual, known for nurturing of well-being. I asked the universe if we could get some insights into the messenger. Ways we could identify the messenger. The world. Someone that the world would recognize or respect. I'm just giving first impressions. I'm not putting it all together because I don't know what all the cards are yet. Ooh. The devil. And 8 batons. I'm not commenting yet. Let me pull the Quint card and see what we have. Okay, so we have the Fool. Now, I didn't think of it at the time when I spoke about the wheel and then the Fool following it. I think was in the last spread, right? Unless I'm remembering incorrectly. But then it made me think, especially now when I see this, could that combination of the wheel and the Fool represent bad timing, right? Could that have represented bad timing? But at any rate, we have the Fool again. So, and I just noticed when I just, pulled the Quint card and just laid the cards down, we have the Queen again. Now, she was also in one of the, earlier spreads regarding this, which with tarot, even though she's not in the read, the fact that now we have a relationship, like that's still present in my mind. Front and center of the core three, we have vanity, overindulgence, a trend that isn't positive. Sometimes devilishness can be fun in the context of a question, but in this context of this question, it almost seems like deviance. Now, it makes me think of the Arthur C. Clarke, I think it's Arthur C. Clarke's book, Childhood's End. It was one of my favorite books. And it was one of the books that I read to my 8th grade students, which when I read it, it blew my mind and it blew their minds. And I don't want to ruin it for you if you haven't read it. And if you'd like to read it, great book. But in that book, what we perceive as demons, well, I guess I am going to read it. If you don't want to be spoiled, the book, tune off right now because I don't want to spoil anything for you. And come back after you read it. Come back to the 22-minute mark to continue. But in that book, what we perceived as demons was when, and the likeness of the devil or evil ones, when it was presented to humanity, what extraterrestrial life was. This is what they look like. They look like what we perceive as devils and demons. They weren't. I think they were called the overlords. They were kind, compassionate, I think, if I recall correctly, but they were totally misunderstood and misconstrued. So is it that the world will misconstrue and misunderstand? And once again, they will take off. Now, I know that there's this card in between, but for those of you who understand how I understand tarot, batons is a social suit. It could represent communities. It could represent the workplace, people like in a club, people in a sports. So it's just like a community or a collective effort. So could it be that the world misconstrues or misunderstands collectively the message and they take off abruptly so that we get just a brief understanding that it may be, that it may be so. But I asked what the person, to describe the person, right? I asked to describe the person that would deliver that information to us, but maybe it's them. Maybe one of them. And we do have a feminine form here. Remember, in tarot, nudity is part of tarot. So I'm saying it kind of late into the game, but if you are offended by partial nudity, this tarot is not for you. And if you're offended by tarot in any way, this channel is not for you. But could it be something presented to humanity? We do have a feminine form. By a feminine form, it's perceived as deviant, and then we recklessly, at our own peril, ignore it. I'm not sure it exactly answered my question, but that's how it's answering my question. And then we have this card that appeared already as a presence, as if to say, don't forget. Ooh, well, I guess at this moment we're not meant to know specifics. That's what I'm gathering. But I do think that information is kind of interesting. Until next time, friends, peace, stay well. Please be brave.